break down things. We don't just watch. We actually analyze. So I analyze his interviews. I analyze his word choice. I look for patterns in the different interviews he did in different platforms to see the common trend. Because a billionaire like him, or a multi-million, he's worth 400 million. He's going to be a billionaire because he's very smart. A guy like him doesn't run around doing 1,000 interviews because he's chasing clout. Byron Allen is not interviewing because he wants to be famous. He's not running around being on the Breakfast Club and Fortune and Forbes and the Griot and all these other places and doing conferences and everything because he wants people to give him attention. He has a strategy. And I was like, what is the strategy? What's the game plan here, Byron? What are we trying to accomplish? So I'm looking for patterns in his word choice, logical sequences of his arguments and the way he's going from one topic to the next, how he's telling his stories and what the conclusion of the story is. Like Les Brown always said, you never tell a story without a point. You never have a point without a story. So he tells his story and then he makes this point, right? So if you notice in the Breakfast Club interview, he starts off talking about the civil rights movement in the 1960s. Tanks coming down my street, my grandmama screaming because Dr. King got killed. And then it leads to this civil rights discussion, which kind of takes over the whole conversation. It's like, oh, by the way, Comcast is trying to take your civil rights, right? You follow me? So ultimately, with this, what he's done effectively is he's linked the Trump administration to Comcast, which has then brought into the battle a lot of the members of the Congressional Black Caucus and others who've been given a license by the white Democrats to talk about Trump. They can talk bad about Trump on behalf of black people. They just can't speak on behalf of black people if it's not something that the white liberals have agreed to allow them to discuss, right? So ultimately, it's instituted their power in helping him with this fight. Now, let's keep going. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button and hit that notification bell while I tell my team real quick that I'm going to be a little bit, I need a couple minutes to finish talking to you guys. So I'm going to tell them I'm going to be a little bit late to my meeting. See, Byron Allen ain't the only one that got meetings. I got meetings every day with my team. If you ever want to be successful in life, get you a team around you of strong, smart people that can help you be successful. So I'm nothing without my team. Anybody out here thinking that it's all about them and you can do it all by yourself, those people are the ones who are losing. So don't be a loser. Learn how to delegate, learn how to work together, learn how to be collegial, learn how to have a squad around you, because my squad is the baddest squad ever. So do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button while I send this quick little note to them. And also, if you want to get on our text list, you can do that right now if you want. You can text the word Boyce to 31996. Text Boyce to 31996. All right. Okay. Sent the note. I need an extra 15 minutes. All right. So let's keep going. Let's keep analyzing this and breaking down the Byron Allen thing. All right. So let's get to Comcast and their response. Comcast has long argued that there were solid business reasons for not carrying the networks that had nothing to do with race. Now, of course, this is what, this is mighty white of them. This is kind of what, white companies will do, is they always, you guys know this, right? You go to a lawyer because you know that your company that hasn't hired a black person in your department since Jesus was a teenager. You go to a lawyer and you try to file a discrimination lawsuit, and the first thing they do is they go through your record in extreme detail to basically say it's not us, it's you, right? Like the ultimate goal, unfortunately, in America, and why these civil rights suits are always hard to win, even if whether Comcast wins or not, it's always going to be hard to file a civil rights suit because America is a racist country. It's very difficult to get civil rights in a racist society. That's just get that. Let's just please all of us. Can we all please, like right now, just get that through our thick heads, because we somehow think that the same people who took justice away are going to bring justice back, right? They're not going to do that. There's a reason why they didn't want you to have justice in the first place. And so to think they're going to contradict that by giving you justice later is a little bit of a problematic line of reasoning. So anyway, Comcast comes back and they're like, no, it's not us, it's you. And let us explain why. So here's what Comcast said. And this is interesting, right? I want you guys to hear this. They said, quote, there's no major media company in America that has done more to promote diverse programming than Comcast. Now, they don't provide any statistical proof of this. There's no, like, I need receipts. Like, okay, if you're number one, tell me why you're number one. All right. So they said, we've gone above and beyond the memorandum of understanding, which I think was an agreement they made with a couple of civil rights organizations. I got to research this, about what kind of diversity they would include in their merger. Remember, Comcast was merging with NBC Universal, and they went out of their way to try to prove that they would be diverse so that nobody would stand in the way of their merger. So they would include people like, the NAACP, National Urban League, people like Al Sharpton, Mark Morial, and others to get them to co-sign on what they're doing. I think that's a problem. I really think that's a problem. I don't think, and I agree with those who argue that Al Sharpton's job, the job he got on MSNBC, could have been connected to his agreement with this big merger, which was worth, billions and billions of dollars. In fact, I would go as far as arguing, in my opinion, that if Sharpton had not co-signed on the merger, he wouldn't have got that job. Because y'all know, give me a yes or no. Has anybody ever seen, give me a yes or no if you've seen Al Sharpton on MSNBC. Has anybody seen Al Sharpton on MSNBC? Has anybody ever seen him? Give me a yes or no. Okay, I see some yeses. I see some no's in here. All right. Let me ask you this. Yes or no? Do you think Al Sharpton is the best guy they could have found for that job? Do you think do you think that there's no journalist, no commentator, nobody more qualified for that job? Like, you really think he went through an exhaustive interview process against, 100 other highly qualified candidates who went to top journalism schools in the planet, and he just won out because he's just damn good. He enunciates his words extremely well. He's dedicated his life to being an excellent journalist and commentator. Do you think that's what happened, or do you think that there might have been some inside operation there? I'm not going to say that it was connected to this merger. I'm just asking you, do you think that there might have been some old boy network at work in this situation? I don't know. I was kind of around Sharpton a little bit more at that time when he got that job at MSNBC. And I can tell you this, I know one day when I went to the National Action Network convention, which was a very nice convention, by the way, it's down at that Sheraton in Midtown Manhattan, beautiful hotel. And so we're sitting there, and he's like, oh, I want you to meet the president of MSNBC. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I go meet this guy, and I'm sitting there thinking, why is he going out of his way? Remember, Al Sharpton is one of the smartest people I've ever met. He's one of the most connected people I've ever seen. And so he just, for some reason, he mentioned 2 or 3 times he wanted me to meet the president of MSNBC. I did not know why. And now I understand things a little bit better. I believe it was a test. I believe it was a test to see, is this guy going to play ball? Like, I really look back at that and I kind of wonder, was this a test to see if I was going to be the next Melissa Harris Perry? Because shortly thereafter, Melissa Harris Perry also got that job at MSNBC right when Obama was going into office. A lot of elite Black people, which I was kind of in that space. I've navigated in all the different worlds, right? So in that elite, I've been on the inside, I've been on the outside. In the inside, a lot of elite Black people supported the Obama presidency because they got elevated as a result of this. Melissa Harris Perry got a job at MSNBC. Sharpton got his job at MSNBC. Who else? Roland Martin rose up through the ranks at CNN. I believe CNN connected with Roland because he was in Chicago and he knew the Obamas personally because he was working with WVON, which is an excellent radio station on the south side of Chicago. So effectively what you saw was a civil war that took place because you had the elite Black people who are like, hey, this Obama thing is good. This is really working out for us. And then you had the people on the outside who were frozen out. Who was in the in crowd? Sharpton, Melissa Harris Perry, Michael Eric Dyson, etc. Who was on the outside? Jesse Jackson, because he wasn't supportive of Obama as much as Obama wanted. He supported him, but he didn't. I guess he wasn't playing ball the way Obama wanted. Who else? What was another one? Cornel West. Because remember, Cornel West was actually speaking up for Black folks. And you had a few others, Dr. Claude Anderson and others, that they just pretty much act like these people didn't exist. Tavis Smiley, thank you. That's another name. So my point is not to even, I'm not even saying this in a critical way. What I'm saying is I want y'all to understand the game, right? That's it. We deconstruct, we analyze here on the Black Financial Channel. And that's the goal. The goal is not for me to get you to go out and say, oh, Al Sharpton ain't shit. You might still like him. It's okay. You might dislike him. I don't really care. All I care about is that you like yourself well enough to understand what's going on so you can position yourself for success. So let's keep going. All right, so hit the thumbs up button. So I'm going to read a little bit more of this article. So here's what Comcast said. Comcast says There's no major media company in America that has done more to promote diverse programming than Comcast. We've gone above and beyond the memorandum of understanding, which everybody was not invited to sign that memorandum. I don't remember hearing anything about this. So what they do is they kind of go to the Negro managers or the Black representatives and they say, hey, we want to do this thing. We need y'all to co-sign because you guys are the influencers that can get the rest of the community to buy into this, right? So let's see here. While Byron Allen chose not to participate in the MOU process that brought 4 African-American owned networks onto our cable lineups. So Byron Allen didn't like the deal. And I'd love to hear what Byron Allen has to say about that. He alluded to that a little bit in the Breakfast Club interview. I think he said something like they treat us like monkeys and they offered us bananas or something, right? Now, I personally like bananas. I had bananas this morning, but I imagine but figurative bananas will probably be a little bit more offensive, right? So the bananas that were offered were probably like, hey, we'll give you, $50 in a bucket of chicken if you go ahead and sign off on this. And I think that what Byron Allen's really saying, I think Byron Allen's making a good point, is that sometimes our low self-esteem causes us not to think big enough in these deals, right? Sometimes the fact that we're used to being shut out leads us to be willing to sacrifice anything to be included. Sometimes that civil rights, that old school civil rights mindset, which is not incredibly unproductive for Black people, but it was a problem because think about this. You're talking about a group of people who were willing to have their asses beat just so they could go sit at a white man's lunch counter. That is a mental illness. When you are willing to go in there and risk death so that you can go and give your money to somebody else, somebody needs to get you off the crazy train, right? It doesn't mean that everybody then was stupid or everybody then was crazy or that they were evil or disruptive. It just means that they needed an intervention, because the thing is that sometimes coonery and that sort of backward mindset is something that was injected and implanted in us during slavery. And sometimes we might think it makes sense when really, when you step out of yourself, you look back and you say, wait, that doesn't make any sense at all. I don't know if you guys agree. I don't know. Would any of you, yes or no? Yes or no? Would you risk your life, risk death? Would you let somebody hit you upside the head with a baseball bat, spray you down with fire hoses, put a gun to your children's head? Also, you can have an opportunity to go across town to Rodeo Drive and go shop at Saks Fifth Avenue or at the Gucci store. Like, would you do this? Now, right? I see a lot of no's. I'm hoping I see no's, man. I mean, if you say yes, you need to call. I'm gonna give you my number. I need you to call me so we can do some therapy sessions, because the reality is that even though Black people are wonderful and amazing and intelligent, sometimes we just get misled. Sometimes we think that right is wrong and wrong is right and left is right and right is left. But then sometimes you have to course correct. Martin Luther King, before he died, Byron Allen mentioned this in the interview, he course corrected. But Martin Luther King was all like about this social integration stuff for a long time. He's like, social integration, and then he's like, wait, hold on. Damn it. This is about the money. They trying to protect the money. The power is in the money. The economics is the key. That's where the power is at. And so one of the blessings, the biggest blessing I've had in my life is that I have had a chance to live, so far right now to this point, I have had a chance to live at least 10 years longer than Martin Luther King. So I'm happy because I get to be one of the people that continues the work that I believe Dr. King would have done had he lived. When I met Jesse Jackson, I met him a few times, several times, many times. I know the Jackson family very well. I remember one time on the phone 8-9 years ago, and I thought this was an honorable statement. I love this was a great statement to hear from him. He said, if Martin Luther King was still here, he'd be quoting you all over the place. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I have no idea, but I'm going to go just take that for what it is and march forward and say that I believe that if Dr. King, wherever he's at, he's in heaven watching us now. I believe he approves this message when I say to you that the number one thing I can do for you as Black people, the number one thing we can do for each other, the number one thing we do for ourselves is figure out how this money thing works, figure out where the money and the power is. And the number one reason I love Byron Allen, the reason I think Byron is a godsend, is because Byron is doing one basic thing for you. He's telling you to have some goddamn self-esteem and start thinking big instead of thinking small. Stop settling for a bucket of chicken and a Snickers bar when you can actually go in there and make big deals with the big boys and get big money. If you're going to go deal with these folks that have taken everything away from you, at least demand something that is worthy of the great people that you are and the extraordinary contribution that you're making to this country.